Paltrocast. Thank you very much, both of you, for taking the time to speak with me. And before I throw tons and tons of compliments at both of you, I'll throw it to Erin first and say, how are you? How's it going besides answering the same questions over and over and over and over again?
I was gonna say, you just threw me a curveball. I was ready for like the same 4 questions. How am I? Doing good this morning, getting to talk a lot about the show and, share that it was kind of how exciting it was for us to put it together. And it's fun. People seem to really be invested, which is really great given, how difficult it was to put together at times.
Before I throw it to David, do you have an easy way of describing this show?
Yeah, we've kind of boiled it down to saying that it's the story of an ex-Israeli special forces self-styled survivalist who decided to take a group of mostly Floridians coast to coast across South America through the Amazon jungle, and all of the drama and trauma that ensued as a result of that.
Wow. Well, David, the first part of the same two-parter, how are you? And the second part is, how did you wind up meeting Erin in the first place? Because sometimes creatives have the same agent, and it's a packaging deal. Sometimes the people just like working with each other and they keep working with each other.
All of the above, I think. Uh, First off, to you, is it your birthday or something? I'm seeing a Mylar balloon over your shoulder.
Oh no, so that's an avocado-shaped balloon that I took from a press event. And I thought it was gonna like blow up 2 months ago, and it's still alive, and my wife doesn't want to put it out of its misery.
They
So
they can stick around. They can stick around. Well,
avocados from Mexico balloon. But there you go. Back to you, David. The David
awesome.
Show.
Awesome. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Erin and I, funny enough, met years ago on the first season of Catfish, the TV show.
Oh yeah.
This was back when catfishing wasn't even in the lexicon, right? No one knew what this term meant, so all of my friends literally thought I was working on a fishing show. And Erin was in the story department, and I was in the indescribable, like, max POV video camera on a screen department.
Yeah.
And then years later, fate brought us back together. We did actually have the same agent at one point, though maybe not at the same time. I had done some work with IPC in the past. They were a fan of some films that I made, and they caught, the story of Mickey and this hundreds of hours of footage from this, where anything could go wrong, went wrong, was floating around. People were aware of this, and the folks at IPC, where Erin is located, they asked me if I had a take. They wanted to know how I would turn this into a TV show. So they invited me on, and then got super lucky in being paired with Erin along the way.
Well, something that both of you have in common on your projects, whether they're together or apart, is that they're interesting, well-researched kinds of programming, yet super entertaining. In other words, you're able to be skeptics, but humorous at the same time. And as an investigator for a living, I love what you do, no matter the topic, whether you're picking on a religious cult, whether you're following people in the field, etc. Now, Erin, when exactly did you know that that was going to be your field, as opposed to making action movies?
Oh, that's a good question. What I found when I started working in documentary is that when you go kind of more the investigative route, it does two things for me that I really respond to. The first is that you're really kind of like mucking around in things that are really, really important to people, whether they're secrets that they've been keeping or stories that they're trying to put out there that aren't really what happened, and they're trying to cover that up. But you're really in an area where there's a lot of emotion and a lot of importance to whatever you're talking about to people. And so that always really drew me. And I'm also just like very stubborn and ask a lot of questions. And so naturally that just sort of always drove me in that general direction. And it kind of had become the joke around here that if it's a show that could get us sued, it's Erin's,
Well, David, you and Erin, let's face it, you're closer to journalists than most of the people that'll be interviewing you this week. I mean, that's kind of a compliment when you think about
I love it.
what journalism was versus what it is now. Somebody who's covering reality shows is somehow a journalist, but what you two are actually doing is, again, telling the truth in an entertaining yet action-packed kind of way. But in something like Expedition from Hell, how much winds up on the cutting room floor from what you filmed?
1,000 hours. I'm not entirely sure. They filmed hundreds of hours themselves. Their archival was long. We filmed very long interviews and various pickup and B-roll along the way. Obviously the most interesting stuff is what we try to keep the audience involved with. There's a lot of Mickey had people filming all the time. He had a crew. He had 3 cameras. This was not a professional crew, mind you. No, he did bring this one guy, Matt Saxman, who you will be learning a lot about as you watch the show, to be like his dedicated camera guy that he yelled at and said, film, 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 why are you so slow? And then he had a couple of indigenous guides or locals that he would do like a intro to film 101 class with and hand them a camera and say, make this work. So there was a lot of shaky cam. There was a lot of leaves. There were a lot of people going to the bathroom. So right off the top, we could just sort of skim that off. Journalism, I love that you put us in that category. I think this is more of a documentary series than a reality series. We both have a real love and fondness for finding another layer or finding another level to every story. Although this one is extremely entertaining and provocative and goes in directions that I don't think anybody is ready for, there are also some universal themes that we touch on that I think are really cool, like ideas of purpose and legacy as we explore, what the meaning is behind this project for everyone involved.
Got it. So, Erin, in your case, very, very difficult to be showrunner on a show that is in remote locations, that has third-party kind of film produced stuff, and at the same time editing in an editing room that's normal. So, in other words, did you know what you signed up for in being showrunner?
Well, it was a little more difficult than I anticipated at times. I mean, what we knew walking into it, the first challenge was the state of the raw footage. I mean, it was a little overwhelming when we kind of like fully realized, here we have these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, as David mentioned, and I can't describe how disorganized it was. It literally was a hard drive that was full of like these 3 and 4 minute bits of video with no logs, no like coherent labeling. You'd like stumble into a clip where like people are screaming at each other and they're in the middle of an argument, and you're saying, well, wait, when did this start? What are they talking about? How does this resolve? Here's a clip and these guys are all running around with guns, with wait, this looks like a police raid. What's going on? And so it took us months to start to sort through all of that and find ways to cross-reference and to dig into the metadata and to create just like a simple chronology of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of archival footage. That was sort of like the first challenge. And so I knew going into it, we also had like a limited amount of time and a limited amount of shoot days. And so we wanted to have an understanding, like when we started, we didn't even know what questions to ask. We couldn't have started by going and doing our interviews because we didn't have enough of an understanding of what had sort of gone on. So we started the post process first with like organizing the footage and starting the post and starting to lay things together and starting to try to like understand and outline and kind of like figure out what even the events were that we were going to be telling. And then we went out to conduct our interviews. So that was when it got a little stacked up on me, and I'm, out in the field, and David and I are like running through these interviews, day after day after day, where we've got just these packets of like 35 pages of all of these detailed questions that we're trying to piece together. And I had, 6 edit bays going at full speed at the same time. That there were a few times where it felt like a lot. But it was a really great, interesting process, because what happened as we get deeper into the series, and what I think you start to see, especially in the later episodes, is that we found that we sort of became part of the story. The existence of this filmmaking team that's trying to understand what we're seeing in the footage and what really happened, and how that matches the narrative that's being told, or that, you know, is being promoted, and how it doesn't, and what was really going on there. That became a really big part of what we were doing. And we had to sort of like figure out how to introduce that into the series itself, so that the audience could come along with us and be asking the questions that we were asking, and getting the answers that we were slowly piecing together as we were doing this.
Well, usually work leads to more work. And when you're successful with something, they go, oh, let's pigeonhole that person and let's give them more of that. Now, while I want you both to work endlessly for the future, I'm hoping the next project doesn't have hundreds of hours to cull through in this agonizing way. So kudos to you both in doing this, finishing this, making it entertaining. And I really look forward to whatever's to come next from both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And in closing, the best way to find out about that next project, whatever it is it the gram? How do we find out?
Yeah, Instagram is great. I don't have a ton of followers or anything. I'm not like an influencer, but I certainly share when I can.
Same deal for you, Erin. Is it the gram?
I'm the worst. I have no social media presence at all. I just work all the time. So at some point, somebody will put a show out and my name will be on it. And I'd love to talk to you when that happens.
Well, thank you. And when I have to add your credits to IMDb, just get them to me and we'll add it that way. But in the meantime, best of luck with the rest of the quote unquote journalists today.
Oh, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Paltrocast.